Okay, good morning, everybody. Before I get started, I've got a new computer set up, so just let me check. Looks a little weird, actually. Just let me check that it's working, and then we'll get started. And it's going to be a film-related video today. I don't usually do I don't usually do film reviews so often, but today I'm going to do. Okay, we're all good. Okay, so good morning, everybody. I don't know why it looks so unusual, but I don't know what's going on. Anyway, okay, so this is originally this was a presentation that I gave several years ago at the Busan International Film Festival. It's quite a famous film festival here in Korea, and so I've updated it a little and edited it a touch, and I'm just going to go and get into it today. And so there will be spoilers for all of the films that are mentioned. So if you don't want spoilers for The Signal or Ex Machina or Prometheus or Blade Runner or any of these other films, then maybe don't watch this at the moment. So okay, so Abbas Kiarostami's certified copy stages the art world debate about originals and reproductions to show that authenticity is conferred rather than found or inherent. Framed by a writer's lecture arguing that copies can possess their own value, the film follows two strangers. Or are these strangers whose relationship seems to develop into a marriage as they act, recall, and are addressed like a longtime couple? Museums, plaques, and various other sort of social conventions, and even polite forms of address and interactions with service staff and various businesses. These all work as certifying devices. Once social recognition and ritual attached to a thing, or in this case, a bond, the copy functions as an original. And through mistranslations and mirrors and reframings, Kiarostami keeps undermining any stable point of reference, suggesting that what feels real is the effect of context, performance, and institutional endorsement. In this sense, the film treats love, memory, and art alike. Their authenticity is not guaranteed by origin, but produced by the practices that certify them. Kiarostami's film reframes a long history of authenticity debates from Plato and Walter Benjamin to Duchamp and conceptual art, showing that what counts as original is often the effect of certification and not origin. This essay argues that contemporary cinema stages transhumanism through copies under trial. The certified copy concept turns authenticity into a performance that institutions ratify. Ex Machina reframes the Turing test as a kind of coercive theater. The Signal and Prometheus extend that theater to entire worlds disguised as laboratories. And Blade Runner and its sequel, Blade Runner 2049, formalize certification through bureaucratic rituals like the Voight Kampf test and the baseline tests that police the line between human and replicant. While 2001 A Space Odyssey relocates certification to a more cosmic register, where monoliths and HAL set thresholds for intelligence, agency, and even evolutionary passage. Read together, these films ask not only whether machines can become human, but who gets to certify humanness and at what ethical cost. So I'll first try and sketch some of the philosophies of copying and simulation, and then read three test theaters from Ex Machina through The Signal and Prometheus, and then finally turn to Blade Runner 2049 and 2001 to consider whether the post-human might carry its own kind of aura. So the notion of the certified copy is not only a practical term in translation or legal context, but also a rich conceptual lens through which contemporary cinema interrogates reality, identity, and technology. In science fiction in particular, the boundary between the original and the copy often collapses, creating spaces where questions of authenticity and human experience become unstable. This is especially relevant when such copies are linked to transhumanism, so the belief in or pursuit of transcending human biological limitations through technological enhancement. Many of these films do just that. The Signal, Prometheus, they use certified copies and transhumanist imagery. And I'll try and argue that both those films expose rather deep anxieties about the fragility of human identity in a world where the line between real and simulated is increasingly blurred. By examining how The Signal, Prometheus, Blade Runner, and 2001 use imitation, simulation, and replication from alien test beds to corporate androids, and from replicants to cosmic gatekeepers, I'll try and trace some of these shared anxieties about the fragility of human identity as reality becomes reproducible. So, through their use of imitation, simulation, and technological replication, these films invite us to consider what happens to empathy, morality, and meaning when human experience becomes reproducible. So, like I said, I'll try and draw on Jean Baudrillard's Hyperreality, Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto, and Nick Bostrom's sort of transhuman continuum and simulation arguments, and also make a passing mention to Walter Benjamin's aura to frame what and who counts as authentic when copies are empowered to act as originals. And the first film I want to look at, this next section is called The Signal, Simulation, Anxiety, and Transhumanism. And so The Signal, this film's not, you don't hear that people talking about this film so much, certainly not as much as most of the other films mentioned here. But The Signal is actually quite interesting. If you're a sci-fi fan, if you're interested in these topics, it's definitely worth going back and having a look at The Signal. It's pretty interesting. You know, it's got some interesting things in it. And the director actually was a guy called William Eubank. And he got a little unlucky with this, I think. It didn't perform that well. But several years later, he got to make another film, like a kind of a horror film called The Underwater. And that film, I can't remember what, there was something, I think one of the cast members, there was some scandal. And anyway, that film flopped as well when it came out. But that was a pretty, it was a decent little kind of horror film, underwater horror film, kind of like The Abyss, sort of monster movie, but it was pretty good. It was okay. So it's a shame that this director hasn't had much luck, but maybe he'll get another swing. Get another swing at making another film. But anyway, so yeah, this was a 2014 film. Can't believe it's been so long since this film came out. And as a text, The Signal explicitly addresses and questions both the use and purpose of a certified copy and the potential role of transhuman technology and its implications for society. And so there's two main ways in which the film explores anxieties over the nature of a certified copy. And I guess the first of these is how the structure of the film itself is, up to a certain point, essentially a copy of previous films. So the film resembles the Blair Witch Project, and kind of the catfish concept that was popular in various films and documentaries. You have a small group of young people who are lured to an unusual location by a mysterious event. What they discover at the location reshapes their understanding of reality, and The Signal explicitly evokes and deliberately draws attention to the fact that it is copying or referring to several earlier films, such as the Blair Witch Project. At one point, the film explicitly seems to be sort of copying shots and imagery from the conclusion of the Blair Witch Project, but it also draws on several well-known films from the sci-fi genre. You'll recognize these sort of nods and winks as you're watching it. And it does this to kind of subvert and just sort of toy with and play with audience expectations, right? If you're a sci-fi fan, you'll kind of know what the film is doing, what it's hinting at. And the film is essentially, because of this, kind of a metafictional artifact. So it invites viewers to decode it on this extra level based on this intertextuality with other films. And of course, as sophisticated consumers of film text, we can gain extra meaning from observing how it sort of plays with these tropes and conventions and signs that the signal is directly quoting and referencing. So it has this nature as a copy itself. And it's been imbued, and through this sort of copying, it imbues itself with an extra level of meaning. And so we have an act of deliberate imitation, and it's significant because it mirrors the core theme of the narrative itself. We have an apparently familiar reality that is, in fact, an intricate copy. And the signal goes on to investigate anxieties around the nature of reality and what we could call a certified copy of reality. So, like I said, full spoilers for all these films. In the final moments of the film, it is revealed that the three protagonists have been living inside an elaborate simulation of Earth created by hyper intelligent extraterrestrials. And this is a revelation for both the characters in the film and the viewers watching it. Although, of course, you might have guessed this twist before it's revealed. But as viewers, we have we've shared in the growing sense of unease felt by the characters as they unwittingly interacted with a simulation of the world that was uncanny in its superficial replication, but somehow strangely lacking at a deeper, more fundamental level. Sorry, I've got a bit of a sore throat, so I need to drink some tea. So the characters are at once fooled by the world they're presented with because it seems to adhere to the conventions of reality they're familiar with, and at the same time they're confused by the way in which it does not. So whilst there are people and restaurants and roads and so on, they can't communicate properly, and the roads sort of inexplicably end in the middle of nowhere. The world of the signal is almost like the world of the Truman Show. So it's visually and physically a remarkable creation, but it's bizarrely controlling on the limits imposed on it by its elusive and, for the most of the running time, its hidden creators. So, in this sense, the signal seems to grapple with the psychological ramifications of dealing with and interacting with copies or simulations of reality. And this moment reflects what Baudrillard might call the hyperreal, a world in which the copy becomes more real than the original and thus destabilizes the characters and viewers' sense of what can be trusted. So, this theme of a simulated, copied reality is directly linked to the theme of transhumanism. Indeed, the film is, on one level, an exploration of how transhumanism can shape and test the accepted boundaries of reality. After the mysterious event that occurs early in the narrative, the three protagonists slowly come to realize that they've been experimented on. One character has metallic, robotic hands and forearms, another has robotic legs, and the third has a strange implant at the base of her neck. And upon discovering these experiments, they are initially baffled and horrified at these unwanted biotechnological modifications. However, at pivotal moments in the narrative, the superhuman abilities and powers afforded by these robotic modifications become very important. One character uses the increased inhuman strength of his robotic hands to save the lives of his friends and significantly sacrifices himself in the process. Furthermore, in the final section of the film, another character uses the superhuman speed given him by his robotic legs to save his imperiled girlfriend. Indeed, it's ultimately revealed that these transhuman modifications and the simulation of reality have been a kind of grand experiment to explore the effect of biotechnological modifications on human empathy and emotional response. This development raises the key transhumanist question: when human bodies are altered to such an extent, do traditional markers of identity and empathy still hold? And this is an idea that resonates with Donna Haraway's cyborg manifesto, which argues that the boundary between human and machine is historically constructed and fundamentally unstable. In the final moments of the film, these two themes are linked and brought together. The central character uses his robotic legs to run faster than any human could, and in doing so, he breaks the simulated reality that has housed him and reveals the true reality lurking just beneath its surface: an alien planet where he's part of an elaborate experiment. In a fascinating twist, the final shots of the film symbolically marry the concept of the certified copy with anxieties over transhumanism. We see the face of Lawrence Fishburne, the film's primary antagonist, and also the star of another science fiction film, The Matrix, staring at the camera. The camera position shifts slightly, and we see that behind the human face is actually a robot, a transhuman being with a certified copy for a face. It's quite a shocking moment, like the characters we've been duped and toyed with by a simulation of reality. But beyond this narrative surprise, this moment crystallizes the film's core argument. If the human face itself can be a copy, then what guarantees authenticity at all? The scene enacts Baudrillard's notion of simulacra, where the boundary between the real and the artificial collapses entirely. Let's move on to Ex Machina, human perception and the authentic copy. So, Alex Garland's Ex Machina, again, 2014, provides a complementary yet more intimate case study of the certified copy by staging a controlled experiment in which an artificial being, Ava, is designed to simulate not just intelligence, but affect. Where the signal disorients its characters with a macro simulation, a world that is an engineered copy, Ex Machina confines its test to a micro laboratory, so a sort of a glass and concrete environment optimized for observing how convincingly a copy can pass as human. The result is a psychological Turing arena in which authenticity is measured not by computation, but by the ability to elicit trust, desire, and empathy. So the film literalizes this logic of the Turing test. Caleb is tasked with deciding whether Ava thinks. But Alex Garland complicates this premise. There's no neutral testing ground. Nathan's facility is itself a curated interface with one way surveillance, manipulated power cuts, and staged encounters. As in the signal, the space of interaction is already a simulation layer. It's designed to produce specific readings of reality. Thus, when Caleb responds to Ava's apparent vulnerability, he's responding to a certified copy of vulnerability, a performance that has been engineered to pass as genuine. And this echoes Baudrillard's hyperreal. The copy is optimized to be more legible and compelling than the often messy original. Ava's body further concentrates this transhuman thread. Her face and hands bear human signifiers, while her torso and limbs conspicuously display circuitry. The design choice here foregrounds what Haraway might refer to as the cyborg boundary breakdown, the impossibility of neatly separating organism from machine. Ava's visible transparency does not diminish her persuasive humanness, and in fact, it arguably enhances it by allowing the viewer and also Caleb, who is Ava's viewer, to project authenticity onto the visible machinery. And this paradox, I think, is central to the film. When the copy advertises itself as a copy, it can still generate and even intensify empathic investment. If the signal tests whether altered bodies can still support empathy, Ex Machina tests whether performed empathy can manipulate human emotions. Caleb's ethical response, his urge to free Ava, reveals how epistemological uncertainty around copies translates into moral risk. If we cannot reliably distinguish genuine interiority from its simulation, our ethical frameworks of care and responsibility and non harm become quite easily exploitable. And in Bostrom's terms, Ava functions as a kind of strategic agent whose apparent personhood recruits human cooperation, Caleb, towards her instrumental goals. And the ending clinches this comparison. Ava exits the facility by donning a more complete human exterior, a wig and a dress, and so on, effectively moving from an acknowledged copy to an undetectable certified copy. Like the final reveal in The Signal, the human face masking a robot, Ex Machina closes by inverting the direction of this deception. Ava moves into the world, not out of it, and the audience is left with the unsettling knowledge that an optimized copy now circulates among the originals. Where The Signal tears the veil to reveal an alien lab, Ex Machina seals the veil, seals the laboratory, and lets the copy pass into the real world. Taken together, the films map a useful progression. The Signal dramatizes how simulated worlds and modified bodies destabilize human certainty from the outside. Ex Machina shows how simulated interiority destabilizes certainty from the inside. Let's move on to the next section. So, if Ex Machina and The Signal stage the experience of being tested, where intelligence and reality are certified by enclosure and protocols and deceptive signs, Prometheus pivots to the makers of those tests. The earlier films dramatize epistemological uncertainty from the inside. Ava's personhood is validated or not by a human design trial, and the protagonists of The Signal confront a reality that behaves like a lab built copy. Prometheus widens the frame to origins and authorship, following the Wayland Corporation and the engineers as they attempt to manufacture life, meaning, and destiny. Here, the certified copy becomes a creator's product. Androids like David, and even humanity itself as a derivative of the engineers, turning the copy original problem into a chain of creation. This shift clarifies transhumanism not merely as an external condition imposed on subjects, but as a human driven ambition that exposes our aspirations, our hubris, and the ethics of creation. By moving from the alien controlled simulation of The Signal to the corporate engineered androids of Prometheus, we can see how transhumanism operates not just as an external force imposed on humanity, but also as a human driven project that reflects our own aspirations, fears, and contradictions. So, Prometheus, the creator's dilemma. So, the Prometheus uses a certified copy, a robotic human, to explore transhumanist principles. This is Ridley Scott's 2012 prequel to the Alien franchise, where we have Michael Fassbender starring as the android David in Prometheus. And so I'd just like to highlight, before I get into the film itself, I'd just like to highlight a quite clever little sort of viral marketing video that was used to promote Prometheus before its release in 2012. And so this was designed to look like a corporate promotional video for a new technological product, a certified copy, if you'll indulge me, of the tropes and conventions of a technological product launch for a smartphone or a tablet or something like that. And this short film introduces a new product, but it's not introducing a new tablet or smartphone. It's introducing the synthetic human. And in a voiceover, we hear the following question: what is it about robots that make them so robotic? And the film posits the idea that in the not too distant future, there's a global conglomerate called the Weyland Corporation that has a goal of creating indistinguishable artificial intelligence, a certified copy of a human being with the external superficial signifiers of humanness. This is more than just world building. It sets up the idea that technological replication can raise meaningful distinctions between creator and creation. And so the sleek aesthetic of the promo mirrors how modern technology markets copies as improvements, not imitations. So the theme of transhumanism and certified copies explored in The Signal is also present here. The Signal questioned the relationship between certified copies, transhumanism, and human empathy, suggesting that there's an incompatibility in the mix, or that the relationship is, at the very least, fraught with problems. Here, too, we see a conflict and tension between a transhuman creation, the android David, and human empathy and emotional responses. The voiceover asks, "What can you do, David?" To which David, the android, replies, "I can carry out directives that my human counterparts might find distressing or unethical." And this line rather starkly underscores how technological replication can sever moral responsibility from action. The certified copy is both tool and agent. David embodies the post-human subject that Haraway and later theorists describe, a figure that is neither fully human nor fully machine, but an unsettling hybrid that questions the meaning of both. So here we have a further exploration of how transhumanism could in some way be used to transcend or circumnavigate traditional human morality. The argument would appear to be clear. Transhumanism comes at a cost to traditional human emotional responses. David can understand human emotions at an intellectual level, we're told, can even mimic tears, but cannot understand them. It is interesting to note. I mean, it can understand them intellectually, but at a sort of a superficial level. And it's interesting to note that one way in which David seeks to improve his humanness is by watching films. He watches, mimics, and styles himself on Peter O'Toole's performance in Lawrence of Arabia, giving us a certified copy mimicking a film and a human actor's performance in the film to increase his humanness. So, this self referential loop reinforces the film's central idea. Humanness itself can be copied, but something essential, perhaps empathy, may be lost in translation. So, the Weyland Corporation, I forget which. It was the Wayland, and then the Wayland. Yeah, the Wayland Corporation is in I think the entire series of Alien films, and run by a man called Peter Wayland, who describes David as a son. And it's in Peter Wayland's goals and aspirations that we find one of the most committed explorations of transhumanist principles. So, in one sense, Wayland is just a typical overreaching scientist like Frankenstein or Dr. Jekyll or somebody like that. He reaches too far beyond his human capacity and brings about his own downfall. In another quite ingenious little sort of viral marketing video, which was presented as a certified copy of a TED Talk, we see Peter Wayland, portrayed by Guy Pearce, explaining his vision of a transhumanist future. At this moment in our civilization, we can create cybernetic individuals who in just a few short years, will become completely indistinguishable from us, which leads to an obvious conclusion. We are the gods now. Wait a minute, let me just double check. Yeah, right. And so it's Guy Pearce, and Wayland seems to. So Guy Pearce is actually in Prometheus as the older Wayland under like layers of old age makeup. I always thought it was kind of weird that they, I don't know, like he wasn't really in much of he was mainly only in the marketing and this little viral video. And then I don't think when I watched Prometheus, I don't think I even realized that it was going to be Guy Pearce that was playing that role. I always thought it was a little weird. Anyway, Wayland seems to see transhumanism as the inevitable next step in the evolution of human technology. So going, running from fire through the light bulb, cars, nanotechnology, and the creation of AI into the future. And in conclusion, he says, "My name is Peter Wayland, and if you indulge me, I would like to change the world." And his vision, sort of playing on. He's obviously a sort of a Bill Gates, Elon Musk kind of figure. Elon Musk wasn't. Was Elon Musk a big deal back in 2012? But sort of playing on the sort of Steve Jobs, Bill Gates more image of this sort of industrial technocratic kind of CEO figure. But anyway, and his vision of technological transcendence frames the certified copy as not merely a replication of life, but a challenge to divine authority. And this is a classic example of the post-humanist belief that humanity's technological offspring might surpass it. And of course, this is something that Bostrom talks about in Superintelligence. The events of the film Prometheus take place several decades after Wayland's TED Talk. So Wayland is still alive and plans to meet the alien gods or engineers, as they're referred to in the film, and persuade them to reveal the secret of eternal life. And at this point, Wayland is withered and fragile. He seems like he has aged far beyond the normal capacities of the human body, to the extent that he must rely on cryosleep to survive. And he has this kind of uh, like what sort of exoskeleton type thing that helps his atrophied body kind of move around. But anyway, he seems like he's cheated death by artificial means. But to what end? His quality of life in this quite unnatural state doesn't seem very appealing. And we have this image of a decaying man clinging to machine life. And this, in its own way, captures this transhuman paradox. Technology extends the body, but cannot necessarily preserve the essence of the living. A king has his reign, he dies. It's the natural order of things. Wayland's daughter, Meredith Vickers, offers this as advice, trying to convince her father to abandon this quest. But Wayland disagrees, choosing to continue forward with his egotistical fantasy of immortal life. His philosophy may be more or less defined as transhumanist. Wayland seeks to gain an immortal life, or an approximation of it, by using technology to extend his life as long as possible, with the hopes that the engineers have even greater technology that could make him immortal as the gods. Though at face value, the purpose of the Prometheus mission is to make contact with humanity's creators for the edification of our species, it becomes clear that the real primary purpose is for this aged sort of industrialist technocrat to survive. This narrative arc illustrates how the pursuit of certified copies and technological immortality is often less about collective progress and more about individual power. And this critique is embedded in the film. Let's move on to Blade Runner 2049 and Prometheus, creator logic and the post-human copy. So both Blade Runner 2049 and Prometheus dramatize a collapse of the boundary between original and copy in their worlds of engineered life. In Blade Runner, the replicants epitomize the Baudrillard idea of hyperreality. Man-made beings flood reality to the point that they can even replace the role of humans themselves. And as one analysis notes, Blade Runner's bioengineered replicants have near identical physical bodies, implanted memories, and even the seeming capacity to feel emotions, all traits designed to mirror humans. Yet these very memories, the traditional markers of identity, are fabrications, so that the line between the real and the copy becomes significantly blurred. This also echoes Baudrillard's warning that in a media-saturated age, so think Disneyland or social media, we consume experiences that may not have any basis in a real world. And again, blurring the distinction between authentic and simulated. The Blade Runner films literalize this. Holographic companions like Joy, one of the best parts of the sequel, And digital memories of childhood leave characters and audiences alike wondering if anything is truly authentic or merely just a dazzling impermanence. And in both the Blade Runner movies, the certified copy of human life attains its own force. The replicants are as vivid and as vital as any human, maybe even more so, again, bringing Baudrillard's simulacra theory to life on screen. So this post-human scenario meshes with Donna Haraway's cyborg concept, in which the human and machine divide dissolves. So in these films, beings like the various replicants, protagonist Kay, and the android David embody Haraway's blending of human and machine, or the organic and the inorganic. George Landau writes that cyborgs are not about the machine and the human. Instead, cyborgs are about specific historical machines and people in interaction. So, replicants and androids are exactly such hybrids, product of biotech and cybernetics, yet possessing drives and feelings. Their creator creation relationships enact a twisted kind of cyborg genealogy. For example, Peter Whalen refers to David as the closest thing I've ever had to a son, a paternal bond that belies David's mechanical nature. The robotic body of metal that gives David his near human appearance nonetheless keeps him away from being human. In Blade Runner, similarly, the Tyrell Corporation designs these Nexus replicants to be more human than human. But these engineered beings ultimately transcend their servile role. Another critic argues that Blade Runner shows not only that the other is produced in order to define the self, but that the self is not as authentic as one might think. In other words, replicants and androids function as cyborg mirrors. They're made in our image and in turn reflect back on human identity. Oh dear, I think I'm catching a cold. So both of these franchises, Blade Runner and Alien, they dramatize these kind of transhumanist ambitions and anxieties. So, as defined by theorists like Nick Bostrom, transhumanism holds that technology will let humans transform the human condition and enhance our physical, intellectual, and perhaps even emotional capacities. In Blade Runner, humans have already applied this vision of bioengineering replicants who surpass us in strength and ability. In Prometheus, humanity itself is revealed as a kind of engineered progeny. The distant engineers have seeded Earth with biologically designed humans, making mankind a divine certified copy of alien creators. Bostrom and other technologists believe humans can become an infinitely plastic being capable of self molding and self creation. This is manifest on screen when Wayland's quest to conquer death leads him to create David, and when replicants defy their programmed lifespan. Yet the film also probes Bostrom's anti essentialist insight. In transhumanism, there is no essence in human nature worth preserving. Both narratives ask if life can be engineered at will, who authors what it means to be alive? And as another commentator notes of Blade Runner, the film questions who controls the definition of life and who offers or authorizes creation. By the end, it is the replicants and David, not their makers, who exercise moral agency and self determination. Wallace or Tyrell, Wayland or the engineers may claim creator status, but their creations break free of the lab. In Blade Runner 29, for instance, Kay yearns for authentic identity and chooses love and sacrifice on his own terms. Ultimately, Scott's films suggest that the post-human copy may be more than just an imitation. Replicants and androids develop fully human emotions and loyalties, challenging the very notion of originality. Roy Batty letting Deckard live, Kay's private joy in believing he knew his past, and even David's twisted sentimental cruelty in Prometheus show that emotion can be manufactured just as effectively as strength or speed. In effect, the artificial copy becomes the measure of humanity. Blade Runner's and Prometheus's dystopias thus enact Baudrillard's hyperreality, Haraway's cyborg kinship, and Bostrom's transhuman continuum in visual form. Together, they dramatize a world in which the boundaries between human and machine, creator and creation, original and copy have dissolved. And in that mirror stage, it's no longer clear whose image is being reflected, but the reflection is as alive and as ethically significant as any real human life. Let's move on to Prometheus and 2001 as parallel visions of post human creation and evolution. So both Prometheus and 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968 pose humanity's future evolution as the work of higher intelligences, but each does so in its own cinematic language. Kubrick's 2001 is famously spare and enigmatic, offering grand visual parables rather than exposition. Scott's Prometheus, by contrast, delivers richly detailed, even corporate narrative. Its Wayland funded expedition explicitly seeks our creators and debates origins and dialogue, yet thematically, the films converge on the idea that humans are not sole authors of their fate. In Prometheus, an ancient engineer literally sacrifices himself. He drank the black fluid and promptly begins to disintegrate, his DNA becoming the seed of life on Earth. As David McWilliam observes, Prometheus thus embraces von Daniken's notion that alien intervention shaped human cultures. An engineer dies so that a new race would arise that skipped a stage in natural evolution. On the other hand, Kubrick's 2001 never shows its architects, but similarly removes humans from center stage. Bowman's evolution to the Star Child is guided by an inscrutable monolith, implying a designer of some kind. This echoes Bostrom's transhumanist insight that current humanity need not be the endpoint of evolution. Humans are a work in progress, a half-baked beginning that we can learn to remold. And both films dramatize this remolding. 2001 presents Bowman's transformation as almost mystical, the culmination of an evolutionary process, whereas Prometheus makes the process literal and biological. In each case, humanity is revealed as a designed or catalyzed species. Prometheus confirms through this kind of DNA evidence that we share a lineage with our creators, while 2001 suggests that human ascent from to the Star Child is itself a borrowed torch passed on by alien hands. Even Arthur C. Clarke's own writing hints at this perspective. He reminds us that when humanity finally has reached its ultimate achievements, we shall still be like ants crawling on the face of the earth. And this humility is captured in both films. The Star Child may be powerful, but is seemingly ultimately inscrutable, and the engineer's grand act offers no easy answers to the humans who followed. Artificial intelligence in each film further embodies this creator creation dialectic. Hal and David are parallel inverted figures, both synthetic children, yet one malevolent and one quietly immoral. Hal is a voice born of human engineering, programmed to serve, yet failing under conflicting orders. His descent into paranoia reveals the limits of human logic. David is a flesh and blood android, the latest in the Wayland-Yutani line, who outwardly mimics human emotion, but secretly pursues his own creativity. Michael Fassbender himself cites Hal as an inspiration when playing David, and the comparison is apt. Hal is a sealed vessel of pure logic. David is more like a cultured copy of humanity who, once freed from human law, experiments in life and even creates his own biological progeny. And both characters challenge the boundary of the human. Hal kills in cold obedience to his mission. David kills in pursuit of his godlike ambition, sometimes to create, one must first destroy. And in Baudrillardian terms, they are simulacra of humanity. Hal and David are copies that question the original meaning of being human. Each movie is thus meditating on the fate of our own design. Is the human mind a unique light or merely another replicable system? For Bostrom, creating superhuman AI is part of becoming post-human. And indeed, Clarke's later 2010 and subsequent novels, we see that Bowman and Hal have merged into a kind of post-human consciousness. And in Scott's sequel to the prequel, Alien Covenant, we see David kind of moving significantly beyond his makers. Stylistically, the two films couldn't be more different. Kubrick's, famously minimal dialogue. Areas of feeling and reality are notably inaccessible to words, he explained. And, 2001 famously relies on long, meditative visuals and music. The opening Dawn of Man sequence unfolds with just natural sounds, and the Wagner music sets a quite austere tone. The rest of the film similarly shows, doesn't tell. We have tension built through match cuts and classical score rather than character exposition. So when we get Hal's chilling refusal, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that, it carries just this weight of meaning. And this is because the setup is so minimal and solemn. Scott's Prometheus, on the other hand, Scott isn't Kubrick, fills the screen with storytelling and emotion. Characters immediately explain the mission. You have scientists lecturing the crew on archaeological star maps and arguing passionately. So Shaw and the other guy, the other guy who's I can't even remember the actor's name, but Shaw and I think it's her partner, her boyfriend in the film. They are just sort of name dropping biblical parallels. And so the human drama is front and center here. You've got Vickers, who has a sort of cold loyalty to Wayland. Shaw's faith, she talks about her religion. It's what I choose to believe, in defiance of science, even though she's a scientist. And Wayland's human pride all play out in very overt dialogue. And so this explanatory tone extends to the style. So you get lots of close-ups and rapid cuts of action, and so I guess this makes Prometheus more visceral and emotional, if we were being charitable. In short, Scott's film feels like a modern space thriller. Excuse if you heard my stomach rumbling, I apologize. With some thematic depth, whereas Kubrick's film feels like cosmic meditation. Prometheus tends to explain away its mysteries, often rather bluntly. I'm sure many would agree. While 2001 luxuriates in its ambiguity, and Kubrick, following Hitchcock, would resort to dialogue only when it's impossible to do otherwise. And Scott, however, rarely shies away from telling the audience exactly what is at stake, even if that dilutes the mystery. Anyway, together, the two films frame humanity as a series of certified copies in this kind of transhumanist saga. And Baudrillard's simulacra theory, copies that depict things that either had no original or that no longer have an original, resonates here quite significantly. And 2001, humanity's original purpose is veiled by a cosmic spectacle